Southern California basketball has a reputation of its own, right? I mean, like you think about Los Angeles, and Sharif O'Neal is a guy who we spoke to a couple of weeks back, and Sharif was talking about coming out of the city of Los Angeles, and he was really one of the dominating players during that time. It became like a top 30 prospect, and just how much competition is in the city of Los Angeles, San Diego, all around the Southern California area. Just to give you an idea of some of the names that have come out, that have originated from this part of the world, that have had an impact on basketball. Klay Thompson, Russell Westbrook, Darren Collison, Kawhi Leonard, Jared Dudley, James Harden, Nick Young, Jrue Holiday, Trevor Ariza, Tyson Chandler. The list can just keep going. This is Southern California, not California, Southern California. Lonzo Ball. Scorebooklive.com. Scorebooklive.com. I want to make sure and get the right site on this. Scorebooklive.com. We know that it's bracket season, right? And I haven't forgot about the Field of 64 for the LSU football players. I know I teased that a while back. We did the basketball, and we did what else did we do? We did fast food restaurants here. We did a top 16 basketball. We had a Field of 64 for sports movies. So Scorebook Live in California at scorebooklive.com/California put out a Field of 64. It's not 64. Put out a Field of 49 on who they thought the top players to come out of Southern California, over the last 25 years. And Jrue Holiday, he won the bracket. And you look at some of these names that come out, and I didn't realize that Holiday was such a standout high school basketball player. So here's the deal. The best high school boys basketball player to come out of Southern California over the past 20 years was put up at scorebooklive.com, and the winner was Jrue Holiday. It was a 32-player bracket. A 32-player bracket that Holiday narrowly beat Russell Westbrook. To give you an idea of the Final Four, it was Tyson Chandler, Russell Westbrook, Jrue Holiday, and Jared Dudley. It had Jrue Holiday and Russell Westbrook squaring off in the finals. But I was reading up on Holiday as a high school basketball player, and I had no idea. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year in 2008. He averaged 25 and 12 as a point guard for his high school. He went on to play at UCLA. He was drafted 17th overall by the Philadelphia 76ers after 1 year with the Bruins, and obviously, as you know, now plays for the New Orleans Pelicans. But we're just going through some of the stories and getting prepared for today's show, and we've talked so much about football, and I'm looking forward to talking to Jen here in a couple of minutes about some of the things that's going on with basketball. But to see that bracket, to see the names like Kawhi Leonard, Lonzo Ball, Jrue Holiday, Russell Westbrook, Klay Thompson, Tyson Chandler, Trevor Ariza, all those guys come out of one specific area over the last 20 years, and see Holiday and Westbrook in the finals of a poll that was voted on by people around that area. It gives you an idea of the talent that's come out of that region. And we'll talk to Jen Hale about Jrue and the crew, and it gives me an opportunity to transition to a story that we haven't covered on Off the Bench. Hester and I talked about it earlier this week. Was Javonte Smart again putting his name into the NBA draft? And we've had it clarified since some of the confusion earlier this week and throughout some of the reporting of this process, that you do have the opportunity to put your name into the NBA draft twice, right, before you become ineligible to do that again. So in this particular class, guys like Darius Days, Javonte Smart, Emmitt Williams, who also put his name into the NBA draft, all have the potential. Trendon Watford, obviously this is Watford's only first time to go through the process, so the first time that he's put his name into the draft. All of those guys have the opportunity to come back to school. All of them. All those guys have a chance to go through the process, get all the information and data that they're seeking, come back to school, and or sign with an agent, and make their way to the NBA. I anticipate that Emmitt Williams, after out of all of the guys up to this point that have announced that they're going to go through the process, Williams would be the only one at this point that I would definitively say is not coming back. I think that you can look at the future of the LSU basketball program and look at next season, and you can picture that without Williams, and that would probably stick. All the other guys, I think personally, need to come back. And I always have to preface this conversation. It's kind of like the qualifier, the disclaimer of I'm not telling anybody what to do with their life. I'm not telling Javonte Smart that he needs to come back to school if he sees that it's the best opportunity or the best decision for he and his family to go play professional basketball. I have no right, first and foremost, to tell anybody what to do with their life. But when we're talking about basketball, this is just the basketball analysis and summarization of how I see it. It's just one opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I think all those guys need to come back. All of them. And potentially Smart and Days need to come back for 2 more seasons because they need to develop more as a basketball player. When you get to the NBA, you have to be specific, great on something. Specifically, you got to be great on something. And out of all of the prospects in which we talk about, I would think that Days is probably specifically great on one thing more than others, right? Days, to me, is a scorer. He can shoot it. He's got a natural shot. He's got a shot that'll transition to the NBA. When you look at Trendon Watford's offensive game, I think his offensive game is NBA ready. After that, he needs to polish some of that offense, but he also needs to improve tremendously as a defender. When you look at Javonte Smart, Javonte's kind of a hybrid player. He played the 2 as a freshman. He played the 1 as a sophomore. Both he looks comfortable at times in playing, but he doesn't look overly confident at 1 for the entire time that he's playing. So Javonte's got to come back and develop a shot, develop ball handling, develop some type of consistent game that will transition to the next level. If I was in Emmitt Williams' circle, if he had any trust in me, if he was seeking advice from me, I would tell Emmitt to pick up football. Realistically, what is 6'6" in the NBA, Danny? Is that 75 to 80% of the point guards in the league? I mean, if you're 6'6",
yeah, it's
in the
definitely
NBA,
point guard size. Definitely guard size.
You're a guard,
yeah,
right? I mean, and Williams, though he plays bigger than 6'6" on a basketball floor, you will get swallowed up on that size on an NBA floor. It's easy to stand out at 6'6" in college when you've got that athleticism, that explosiveness, and that type of mindset. I mean, he's just more aggressive, tougher, and stronger than everybody, and sometimes he just goes and bowls his way in there and uses his athleticism to grab a rebound or put something back. In the NBA, that can't happen. It's just not going to happen. I mean, think Ricardo Gathers. Ricardo Gathers, to me, is an example and a great comparison for Williams to look at. And Gathers was the best basketball player in the state of Louisiana for 2 years. 2 years in high school at Riverside, the state recognized him as the top player, the top basketball player in the state. Now, unluckily for LSU at the time, you had Trent Johnson as the LSU head basketball coach who was just anti-talent. If anybody was talented at the time, you were not allowed to play for LSU. And Ricardo was too talented at the time, but he went to Baylor. He was a 4-year starter. He was an all Big 12 guy, but at the end of it, you know what he did? He signed a free agent contract with the Dallas Cowboys. He may have been drafted. He may have been taken with a selection by the Cowboys as a tight end. Last I checked, he was on Cleveland's practice squad. If Emmitt wants to make real money as a professional athlete, I think there's only one sport to do that in for him. Otherwise, he's going to have to accept that he'll probably be playing in Europe for a long time.
Yeah, Thomas Robinson's a good example of that. From Kansas, he was number 5 overall pick, 6'9" in college. He dominated, and now he's in Europe playing.
Big baby,
yeah,
big baby
too.
I mean,
yeah.
Big baby squeezed the most out of that 6'9" frame that he got from the NBA. But once you can't get off the ground anymore at 6'9" and you can't play above the rim and you can't move space and create space in there, you're useless. You know what I mean? You're useless in that league. There's just too much size, athleticism, and youth that plays above the rim.